hard to believe that in 1982, a 157 horsepower, 2-barrel carbureted, 4-lug Fox body Mustang would be the catalyst that brought back muscle cars. We still had a few names still around, like Trans Am, Z28, and Corvette, but let's face it, they were struggling too. The OPEC oil crisis of the 1970s and the emerging push for cleaner emissions struck a near fatal blow to the American automakers as they struggled throughout the remainder of the decade amidst a sea of vacuum hoses, catalytic converters, and feedback carburetors. The muscle cars of the mid to late 70s were heavy, sluggish, and a myriad of old technology poorly grafted to band-aids upon band-aids in order to somehow make it to the next model year and hopefully find the tech that could answer car enthusiasts' prayers. It was nothing short of a miracle that Detroit crawled out of the mire to produce these Neo-era muscle cars that have now developed farther than we could ever imagine. To be honest, we couldn't go back. Gone were the days of big block, fire-breathing behemoths with Spartan interiors that were horrible to drive on the street. They were replaced with small engine cruise missiles that utilized sophisticated engine controls that developed an honest 500 to 800 emissions acceptable horses with a smooth idle. These new muscle cars were aerodynamic, nimble, and comfortable. I'm talking heated seats, surround sound, heater and AC, power windows, the works. A 69 ZL1 Camaro owner with chambered exhaust would be lucky to have all of his hearing after a night of cruising. In the midst of this new car renaissance, the manufacturers did one other thing, and that's take the low-production legendary cars from the 60s and 70s and turn them into brands. No longer were they mere options to check off, they were full-blown model lines. That's because manufacturers weren't building race cars to sell street cars anymore. Because all of racing had changed. Race cars of this modern era have gone away from utilizing the factory platform and modifying it. From a safety and practical standpoint, race cars and street cars were going in completely different directions, and the street cars suffered from it. The manufacturers needed a reason to bring some excitement back into the showrooms, which brings us to 1997, the introduction of the 5th generation Corvette. The C4 had come a long way, and the C5 was a huge leap from its predecessor. Two big advances for the C5 were the brand new LS1 engine and the rear-mounted transaxle. The entire car was a huge step in the right direction. The LS1 was the first true redesign of the small block Chevy that was introduced in 1955. The new chassis had near 50-50 weight distribution thanks to the transaxle, which made it a very balanced car to drive. In 1999, Chevrolet took a serious leap into racing once again with the introduction of the C5R racing program. Built by Pratt & Miller and campaigned by Chevy, the C5R competed in the GTS class and proved itself a force to be reckoned with, made apparent by multiple championships in the American Le Mans Series and wins in its class at Le Mans, Daytona, and Sebring. Also in 1999, Chevy introduced the fixed roof coupe. Basically a Corvette with a rigid hardtop and trunk, no removable roof section. This car was built for strength and rigidity, perfect for building a car that could take corners, yet cruise at high speeds and remain stable. Chevy knew that performance enthusiasts definitely liked the fixed roof coupe. It showed that there was a market for an American-made car that could give the exotics a run for their money at a fraction of the cost. So in 2001, Chevrolet stepped up their game and reintroduced the world to the Corvette Z06. The popular fixed roof coupe was made into an all-new package that was a throwback to the original C2. The new Z06 was powered by a new 385 horsepower LS6 engine that breathed through high-flow exhaust manifolds and titanium exhaust, made it to a revised 6-speed manual transaxle. Riding on the also new FE4 suspension, it featured stiffer springs, upgraded shocks, and thicker front and rear sway bars. Believe it or not, the C5 brakes were plenty at the time, so they're standard issue Corvette. The wheels were widened to 9.5 for the front and 10.5 for the rear, and were fitted with larger Goodyear F1 Supercar tires measuring 265/40/17 front and 295/35/18 rear for plenty of grip. The entire car was lighter, with a titanium exhaust, lighter battery, lighter wheels, less soundproofing, thinner glass, and even a fixed radio antenna so as not to weigh the car down with the power unit. Aside from the cooler wheels and Z06 fender emblem, the only other way to distinguish it visually from a normal Corvette was the mesh grille up front and a functional side-mounted scoop in front of the rear wheels for brake cooling that paid homage to the original SR1. The new Z06 was fast, had tons of grip, and despite being panned for cheap plastic interior components, was still an extremely plush and comfortable interior, at least compared to the original from '63. The 2001 Z06 delivered the goods, and the people wanted more. For 2002, the engine horsepower was increased to 405 with an improved air intake, bigger camshaft, with heavier valve springs and lighter valves in the heads. While the new Z06 was a pure street car, it was still capable of 0.97 Gs on the skid pad, and many of them made their ways to the racetracks and road courses across America. They were extremely capable cars and proved themselves over and over again. So capable, in fact, that a 2004 Z06 became one of the first production cars to run the Nürburgring road course in less than 8 minutes with a time of 7 minutes 56 seconds.